Hello, Hypno Junkies. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Chaos Head Noah. Well, it turns out this will be a three-parter, not a four-parter. This is going to be the last episode of the Remy ending and the second last episode of the entire series, because next episode will simply be the true ending. From the beginning to wherever we end up. No idea what that's going to be yet. But in the meantime, there's some good stuff in this episode. We had some very interesting revelations and some interesting stuff go on with Remy in the last episode. We're going to have quite a bit of interesting stuff happen with Remy in this episode too. So sit back, enjoy the final character ending of the game, and look forward to the next episode and the finale of the series. Let's get into it. I was awash with an elusive feeling of being immersed in lukewarm water. The waves gently rocked me back and forth as I drifted along its surface. Wait, who are we now? As I slowly opened my eyes, a vibrant blue sky spread out before me. It feels almost like I could fall into it. It was a rather strange sky. The sun was nowhere to be seen. Even though I was supposed to be in my room, so we are talking me, even though it was supposed to be nighttime. When could I possibly have gone outside? When could it have possibly turned to day? We had a conversation with Shogun in a place like this after the third melt on the main route, so that's probably where we are. With the last earthquake, I had been out for more than an hour. Maybe this time I've been unconscious the entire night, I thought to myself. I remembered the earthquake's tremendous impact. Yet another elusive feeling hit me, like the tremors were resonating with the very blood coursing through my veins, threatening to burst open from the inside. Maybe this was heaven? Maybe I died in that earthquake. Heaven, huh? There's no way an otaku freak like me would go to heaven. That wasn't even mentioning how I hadn't even been able to save my own little sister, how I'd been the worst possible brother to her, how I'd made Remy kill Senna and Cosby. Well, at least you acknowledge that. Hell would be a far more fitting place for someone like me, although obviously I'd choose heaven if I could. My body didn't feel quite right. I was being overwhelmed by a sensation of walking on top of a fluffy cloud. I couldn't quite understand it. Isn't Fluffy Cloud a drink in VA 11 Hall A? But regardless of how I felt, I forced myself to get up. So who else is here with us? The feeling of being rocked by the waves hadn't simply been my imagination after all. This was a world with a never-ending surface of crystal clear water, a world where, no matter where I looked, blue filled my view. And I had been right in the middle of it lying down. Where was I? Was this really heaven? But I felt like I'd seen this scenery before. Yeah, this is Remy's scenery. That sky. Where is it? A voice resounded within my mind, a voice which rose from the depths of my memories. Right, I remember now. I'd seen it in a dream before. Yeah, way back in like chapter 3 or something. Remy had been there. I had talked to her as she looked up at the blue sky, her face clearly one of holding back tears. Was I seeing the same dream as I had back then? But no matter where I looked, there was no one other than me. There was no one here, not even Remy. It was far too reposeful. Remy? I tried calling her name, but my words were entirely mute, and yet, even without sound, they created ripples across the calm surface of water. Are you there? Sound was a series of vibrations, and those vibrations in turn created waves. Among those waves, just like I had been a few moments ago, there was someone lying down. I stood up. My field of view expanded. The one drifting along the waves was Remy. She was so unbelievably pale she appeared as if she was dead. Her eyes were closed and both of her hands were resting gently on her chest. And she simply stayed that way, facing up to the sky, not moving even a single inch. Remy, wake up! Even though I called out to her, she didn't react. She was dead. I knew that for certain. But it wasn't just her. The world itself was dead. And so I just stood there, not knowing what to do. Well, right at that very moment, Remy's prone body gradually sank beneath the surface of water. As soon as I realized what was happening, she was already completely submerged. How was I standing on top of water at all, I wondered. Curious, I fixed my gaze below the water's surface. Beyond it, there was only darkness. The sky was so bright, and yet, even though the water was so clear, below it, there was only an eternal darkness that seemed to swallow all. And Remy, still lying on her back, was slowly sinking farther and farther into its depths. I had to go after her. I needed to wake her up. But as soon as that thought crossed my mind, even though I had been able to stand on water until then, all support suddenly disappeared out from under me. Well, you asked for it. I sank. My body grew heavier with each passing second. It was like I was underwater, but it wasn't as though I couldn't breathe. The water was very warm, too. I just wanted to drift within this comfortable sensation for all eternity. That was the way it made me feel. If I had to give an example, rather than ocean water, it was more like amniotic fluid. This was very well might have been how a fetus felt inside its mother's womb. I thought the darkness continued forever, but in truth there was a bottom to it. It was so dark I couldn't even see my feet. I simply felt an odd, sticky sensation on my soles. I stood in the midst of the darkness. When I looked up, I found I could no longer see the surface. That blue sky, too, had been veiled completely by the darkness. Oh, welcome to Remy's Spotlight. The sole source of light was a single ray that descended down from above like a thin thread. Much like a spotlight would, it pointed to a single place. And yet, unlike a spotlight, there was nothing beneath it to be illuminated. It only lit up a meaningless spot. Nervously, I stepped into the light. It was ever so faint and gentle, but the moment I bathed in it, my chest began to ache. What was the sensation? It felt almost as if I could cry at a moment's notice, as if my heart itself was being rended. That was the sensation that overtook me. Where could Remy be right now after sinking all the way down here? Relying on the faint light source alone, I made my way out from beneath the spot of light, then searched the darkness. Soon, my toes hit something soft and yielding. I kneeled down and this time tried touching it with my hand. What I felt was so cold, it was capable of freezing my very fingertips. Little by little, my eyes adjusted to the darkness, and before long I realized something. You were surrounded by Remy's? I was touching a person. Okay, just one. A person lying collapsed on the ground. Remy. Wake up. No, this is an old one. She's wearing a different outfit. I tried shaking her. Remy, wake up. But there was no reaction. She wasn't breathing. Taking her feeble hand, I measured her pulse. She was dead. She had no pulse whatsoever. Dismayed, I strained my eyes to examine the surrounding darkness, only to find that she wasn't the only one. Yeah, exactly. There's a fresh Remy here. You need to find that one. Countless other Remys were collapsed on the ground, almost as if this place were a burial ground. And every single one of them was dead. This was a graveyard, the graveyard of her heart. That was how it felt to me. Suddenly, countless bubbles sprang forth before my eyes, and within each and every one of them I could see different visions being displayed. An instinctive reaction came to me, and I knew then that these were Remy's dead memories. Is there a commonality among those memories? Well, we're cutting to someone else. Oh, literally. The memories themselves. My first memory was one of falling rain, with gloomy, leaden clouds overcasting the sky. How long ago had that been? It was around the time I was just an elementary schooler, maybe 6 years ago? It didn't matter when it had happened, for my memories were not continuous. In it, I saw my dad, whose head had been blown away, and my mom, who had been crushed completely by steel right next to me. What? Were we aware of that? We're not actually aware of how Remy got in the situation she got into. So, maybe this had something to do with it, but this seems like new information. Even though only a moment prior, we had all been celebrating inside the car, happy as could be about our family trip. An enormous truck had closed in on us, and before I even knew what was happening, the car I had been in had been completely flattened. Or maybe I'm just thinking back to Song of Saya again. I had then been struck by an intense pain and my consciousness began to grow blurry. Feeling as if my very body was being torn apart, the sharp squeal of brakes played an endless refrain for my ears. Memory number 1. My next memory was of a radiant light shining down on an operating table and a man's voice. I wondered how long ago that was. It was right after losing my parents, maybe 5 years ago? It didn't matter when it had happened, for my memories were not continuous. I was told by your doctor that you had seen something akin to a sword? Oh, well, hello, Nozomi suit guy. Can you hear me, Buh-san? Because presumably her name wasn't Remy before. I had a feeling someone had called my name, but I can no longer recall what exactly that name was, for it was now a dead name. It seems as though your wounds have not yet healed. I imagine having your parents die before your very eyes must have been quite the shock. Well, I am more than satisfied with only being heard. Aha! I am Narose Genichi, the honorary director of this AH Tokyo General Hospital, as well as one of its sponsors. So Narose Genichi is the honorary director of the hospital. I'm not sure if we knew or cared, but that might be worth noting. You are here because there exists the possibility of you being a gigalomaniac. And by all means, I wish for you to awaken to that power. And by all means, I mean all means. Fortunately, you have no more existing relatives, so we should not be experiencing any troublesome guests knocking at our door. With that said, beginning today, you shall be treated as deceased. From this moment forward, you shall spend your days in this basement. Well, lucky you. You needn't fret. No one knows of this room but me. That's not cause to not fret. So I beseech you, put your utmost into awakening. I have high hopes for you. You are a guinea pig, and I will take the full liberty of enacting various experiments on you in order to determine what is necessary to awaken the powerful unawakened. Yeah, she's actually a guinea pig for us too right now, just in a different way. I continued to stare fixedly at the lights hanging from the ceiling, for I hated the dark more than anything. Well, you might hate other things by the time this is done. My next memory, too, was of a radiant light shining down on an operating table, and a man's voice. I wondered how long ago that was. Having been locked in the basement, I had lost all sense of time. It didn't matter when it had happened, for my memories were not continuous. I wonder if that means some of these memories are going to start coming up out of order. Also, why am I getting whipped? Ouch. This is Narose losing patience. Awaken, damn it! How very perseverant you are, young lady. Your back is full of lacerations with blood pouring out in every direction imaginable. And yet you resist. Why is that? As I have told you many times, if you simply do away with this struggling and awaken, you will be at peace. I don't think she's resisting by not awakening. I mean, we knew Narose tortured her. I continued to stare fixedly at the lights hanging from the ceiling. How is your back getting whipped while you're staring up? How does that work? For if I did so, my vision would be rendered paralyzed, and it would soon all be over without me having to see anything more. All right, and it's done. My next memory, too, deja vu all over again, was of a radiant light shining down on an operating table and a man's voice. I wondered how long ago that was. Having been locked in the basement, I had lost all sense of time. It didn't matter when it had happened, for my memories were not continuous. So now what's happening to you? You. Is it painful? I am merely cutting the surface of your skin. As much as it will bleed, it will not be enough to kill you. So she's getting, like, flayed? If we leave it untreated for 3 days, it will suppurate, and then the itching should begin in earnest. That is when the real experiment begins. Oh, delightful. But please worry not. I am a doctor, and one that is more than capable of handling a scalpel. Oh, that's not my concern. I'm going to torment you, but don't worry, I'm a doctor. Let's see, about 10 locations should suffice. That is annoying. I continued to stare fixedly at the lights hanging from the ceiling. For if I did so, my vision would be rendered paralyzed, and it would soon all be over without me having to see anything more. So we're just going to stare at the lights and blind ourselves? My next memory, too, was of a radiant light shining down on an operating table and a man's voice. I wondered how long ago that was. Having been locked in the basement, I had lost all sense of time. It didn't matter when it happened, for my memories were not continuous. How many times is this going to happen? So how are we being tortured today? Well, there's the itching. Itchy, 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 so itchy, ah! Is that so? Does it itch so? Well, I am afraid that despite this affliction, you may not scratch it. Itch! Ah! Ah! Yeah. Humans are quite the interesting creatures. They can handle pain to a surprising extent, but the same does not apply to any form of itching. To this end, rather than pain, utilizing itching may provide far more effective for shattering one's psyche. It's seeming pretty effective, I gotta admit. I continued to stare fixedly at the lights hanging from the ceiling, for if I did so, my vision would be rendered paralyzed, and it would soon all be over without me having to see anything more. We're just gonna stare at the lights every time. And then I killed my own self. And that's where those memories end, and now we are a different person. My next memory, too, was of a radiant light shining down on an operating table and a man's voice. Yes, we know. I wondered how long ago that was. Having been locked in the basement, I had lost all sense of time. Didn't matter when it had happened, for my memories were not continuous. Ouch! Neurosis is getting more violent. I suppose this constitutes a comminuted fracture of the upper left arm. Comminuted fracture. I'm just going to call it a fracture. I suppose this constitutes a fracture of the upper left arm. I suppose one could call this an immediate bisection. So, yeah, you fractured her arm. Well done. To think you still have yet to awaken. What could I possibly be missing? This is one hell of an experiment. What led him to believe she was a gigalomaniac in the first place? Because he's just doing things and wondering why it's not working. Maybe it's because she's not one, you know? I mean, she is, but he doesn't know that. We shall leave today's experiment here. Please rest well in my absence. Well, I'm sure she's very happy when you're absent. I continued to stare fixedly at the lights hanging from the ceiling, for if I did so, my vision would be rendered paralyzed, and it would soon all be over without me having to see anything more. And then I killed my own self. Let the bodies hit the floor. Okay, what is it this time? My next memory, too, was of a radiant light shining down on an operating table and a man's voice. One of these times it's going to be a woman's voice. Suzuki's going to come in. I wondered how long ago that was. Having been locked in the basement, I had lost all sense of time. It didn't matter, for my memories were not continuous. Yeah. How shall we be tortured today? Unpleasantly. Are we being waterboarded? That seems like a possibility. Oh, there you go. Waterboarding is a form of torture the CIA used up until very recently. It is the most simple and effective technique to best cause great distress in your subjects. Well, lucky us. With just a small amount of water, it is possible to afflict you with the illusion that you are drowning. Despite it originating quite a long time ago, this classic method of torture is still used today in the 21st century. Thanks, CIA. Don't you find that rather fascinating? Let's put you on the receiving end. See how fascinating you find it. I continued to stare fixedly at the lights hanging from the ceiling, for if I did so my vision would be rendered paralyzed. It would soon be all over without me having to see anything more, or the dev team having to make more CGs, and then I killed my own self. I suspect the idea of killing her own self is so that she doesn't have to remember this stuff, but here she is remembering it. My next memory, too, was of a radiant light shining down on an operating table in a man's voice. How long had it been? I had no idea. I was in a basement. Click. I wonder how long ago that was. Having been locked in the basement, I had lost all sense of time, but it didn't matter because my memories were not continuous. What are we in for today? What's today's treat? What's on the menu? Despite this being my first time administering anesthesia, I would say it went quite well. How do you feel? You are now in a state of paralysis from the neck down. Not being able to freely move one's body can lead to an accumulation of stress. I'm sure you can imagine why this might be. Oh, don't you do what I think you're about to do. To begin, let's try having you remain in this state for about a year. Oh, okay. That's probably worse. I will be nourishing you daily via IV, so fear not. Yeah, don't worry. We've got this covered. You are in the hands of the best torturers. Well then, I wish you a wondrous year. And then I killed myself like 18 times. I continued to stare fixedly at the lights hanging from the ceiling, for if I did so my vision would be rendered paralyzed and it would soon be over without me having to see anything as I remained there. Oh, this is new. I felt like I saw something amid the white light. Something that looked almost like a pair of wings. And then I killed my own self. Okay, it's a very slow awakening. I'm not sure Narose is going to get a whole lot of useful, actionable data from this. My next memory was of a radiant light above an operating table. She didn't say 2 this time. And nothing more. No man's voice. We're just in the middle of our year of paralysis. I wondered how long ago that was. Had it been locked in the basement house at the time, it didn't matter when it happened, for my memories were not continuous. We're just here. No matter how many times I called out, no one came to me. Nothing moved, and I couldn't move anything, not even a twitch of a finger. I simply stared vacantly at the light, hanging from the ceiling. There was nothing else I could do. As I remained there, I felt like I saw something amid the white light, something that looked almost like a feathers fluttering about, and then I killed my own self. This D-sword is coming very slowly. Oh, this is a very slow, dark fading into this scene that I'm not used to. What are you being subjected to now? Very slowly coming up, very slow text box. My next memory, too, was of a radiant light above an operating table and a man's voice. Oh, and nothing more. I wondered how long ago that was, locked in the basement, didn't matter, memories were not continuous, blah, blah, blah. Not having a great time still. No matter how many times I called out, no one came for me. Nothing moved, and I couldn't move anything. Not even a twitch of a finger. I simply stared vacantly at the light, hanging from the ceiling. There was nothing else I could do. As I remained there, I felt like I saw something amid the white light, something that looked almost like feathers fluttering about, and then I killed my own self. Man, this is some gripping storytelling here. Anyone bored yet? My next memory was of a radiant light shining down on an operating table and a man's voice. I wondered how long ago that was, locked in the basement, didn't matter, memory's not continuous. What a truly hideous sight. Well, thanks. We'll paralyze you for a year and see how much your muscles atrophy. You have spent one entire year's time lying there. How do you feel? Covered in your own feces, reduced to nothing but skin and bones, and robbed of your very dignity. How does this all make you feel? That is what I ask. Though I must say, please, worry not. I will not kill you. Oh, trust me, we've killed ourselves a few times. It has been about 3 years since this experiment began. I've grown so immensely fond of you, I can hardly contain myself. You are an irreplaceable subject to me. Yes, because you love the results you've gotten from this experiment so much so far. Forcibly awakening a gigalomaniac is extremely difficult. Yeah, apparently. It takes quite a long time. Even still, I need you to awaken quickly. I don't feel like I owe you any favors right now. I'm just going to be honest about that. I have high hopes for you, Static-san. I continued to stare fixedly at the lights hanging from the ceiling. For if I did so, my vision would be rendered paralyzed, and it would soon all be over without me having to see anything more. As I remained there, I felt like I saw something amid the white light, something that looked almost like feathers fluttering down, together with a pair of wings. And then I killed my own self. What number was my current self? I don't know, 7, 8? That's enough. Make it stop, please. To think there was such a tragic past behind Rimi's smile. Yeah, but she forgets it every time she kills herself, so it's okay. I took one of Rimi's corpses that was lying on the ground and brought it closer to my chest. It was terribly cold, and I could tell it was devoid of a soul. But even so, I needed her. I want you here with me, Rimi. I then wished and crafted a delusion. You need to be careful with those. People going willy-nilly with the delusions have had some consequences. Wake up. Please wake up, Rimi. You're the only one who can save me. Yeah, but this isn't the one. You need to find the current Rimi, or maybe the second last one. I know this is selfish of me, but I need you to protect me. I know this is presumptuous of me, but even though I'm a total loser, I feel like I can change if I'm with you. So please, wake up, Rimi. And they all stood up. Every single one of them. The next thing I knew, I found myself in the blue-filled world once again. Waves ran across the surface of water. And then, slowly rising from the depths... Oh, they did actually come up. We're countless Rimis. That was a joke. That was a joke game. No. We don't need a zombie fest here. Only one can be here. Every one of them had their eyes closed and were standing still as could be on top of the water. Boy, you thought you had DID before. I got bad news for you. Eventually they started moving. However, they didn't do so using their legs, but simply glided across the water. One Rimi then overlapped with another, and that same one overlapped with yet another one. She's going to get all her memories back. I'm not sure she's going to enjoy that. The Rimis are merging together. Dumbfounded, I just stood there and watched. Eventually, there were only 4 of them left, then 2. And then the last 2 Rimmys slowly melded together and became one. Are we going to find out your real name? Her eyes opened, and then she looked at me. Could this Rimmy have been the one I knew, that Rimmy, or was it an entirely different one? Well, I think it's all of them. So, yes. I didn't know. I was afraid to call her name, so I waited for her to say something. But instead of speaking, she showed me a warm smile. Bishy? Yeah? Bishy! Raising her hand to her head, she struck her usual pose. Rimmy! Is it really you? Yeah. Rimmy nodded, and then she embraced me. I buried my face in her chest. As is our favorite practice. The feeling of her soft, supple breasts spread across my cheeks, and then she slapped me. Gravity soon disappeared, and the 2 of us began drifting along the blue. Hey, you. I heard your voice, Taku. Wake up, Rimmy, you cried out. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. With her still lying on the ground, Rimmy held me as she gently stroked my hair. I couldn't describe how wonderful that felt. It was as if the very essence of all her kindness and warmth were enveloping me. It reminded me of how I felt when my mom hugged me back when I was a kid, how safe I'd felt in her arms. I wanted to stay like this forever, but at the same time, I wanted to confirm for myself that she really was Rimmy, so I turned my head just enough to look at her face. Are you crying? For me? Ha ha ha. You're such a crybaby, Taku. Even with that horrific past behind her, she still had the brightest smile. I remembered everything, you know. All the countless things I erased by killing my own self so many times. Before now. But I wonder if it would be easier if I didn't remember. Yeah, again, is this a good thing? Rimmy? Rimmy, despite looking like she was about to cry, still made an effort to show a smile. She entwined her fingers with my hair. Hey. Do you want to kiss? Huh? Before I knew it, my chin had forcibly been raised slightly. A captivating aroma filled me, and something warm and tender pressed up against my lips. Right before me was her face. Her eyes were closed. I could feel her soft breaths. So this was a kiss. So sweet and so pleasant, it felt like my brain itself was turning to mush. From just a kiss alone, my heart was filled with love for her. An otaku freak like me depended on her so, yet even still, desired her everything. I closed my eyes and engraved that sensation in my memories. So when we come back to the real world, what's going to happen here? Oh, and there we are. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my room. Rimmy was lying down on the floor with me still in her embrace. Slowly she parted from my lips. I'm back. I'm back, baby. Yeah. No more guinea pig. Rimmy was acting shy, something I found incredibly cute. Our eyes met. The 2 of us were blushing hard. Had girls' bodies always been this soft? Huh. 3D for the win. Time to throw out all my figures. Finally, even I got a real girlfriend. Nobody would ever call me an unpopular taku freak ever again. I did promise that I'd protect you after all. You'll protect me? So where's things gonna go from here? I will. I'll protect you, Takumi, And Nana-chan. What was she trying to say? Ignoring my confusion, Rimi averted her gaze from me and looked up at the ceiling. Before, I had Takumi save my heart. And now, I've had Taku rescue my heart. So this time, I'll be the one who protects you too. I still didn't understand what she meant by Taku and Takumi, but what I did know was that if she was there to protect me, I wouldn't need to worry about anything anymore. She was a gigalomaniac, and she would keep me safe. No matter what Shogun had asked her to do, she'd be able to pull it off. As long as I was with her, that'd be enough for me. I'll try my absolute hardest. I'll try my hardest to atone for my sins, but also to return the favor I owe you both. Atoning for her sins? Was she talking about what she'd done to Senna and Kazubi? Oh yeah, she should remember that now. But that had been legitimate self-defense. She hadn't had a choice, so that should have been how she thought about it. But what felt far more strange to me was how she'd said you both. Who else did she mean? Yeah, of course she's talking about both Takumis, which we are not aware of yet. So, I need you to sleep for now, Taku. Uh-oh. I could feel the vibrations coming from her body at her every word. Even now her fingers were still stroking my hair. I felt so at peace and so very sleepy. Well, there's a delusion. See, I need this power. Reveling in the happiness of falling asleep in her arms, I closed my eyes. Yeah, look into my eyes and go to sleep. That is a messed up roof. By the time Sakihara Rimi left the container, the world around her had changed beyond recognition. A city of death. I guess she's going to go solo this mission, but that did not go well the last time she tried this. That was the most fitting description. Countless buildings littering her surroundings had collapsed, and those that had avoided such a fate had deep cracks ripping through them. The third melt. I never would have thought it'd be this huge. We were too late. Narose Genichi moved Noah 2 into full-scale operation earlier than expected. Will the Shogun hear or just talking in our ear? Never mind, he's here. Following that voice, a boy on a wheelchair appeared before her. This old building was not wheelchair accessible, and yet despite the fact that it should have been impossible for someone in a wheelchair to ascend to the roof on their own, there he sat. But Rimi showed no signs of being surprised by his appearance. It looks like you've returned to your former self. There's no such thing as my former self. It's more like I'm back to the person that Taku wished for. And the fact that Taku did wish for me to come back, I can't explain how happy it made me. He used his power without a D-sword again. That reckless bastard. If we push him just a little bit further, he can awaken. No, it's okay. You can leave Taku alone. Cutting his words short, Rimi spoke with an intense conviction. I'll take care of Noah too. Yeah, we'll see about this. I mean, this is her ending. So, maybe yes, maybe no. I'll save Nana-chan, because again, last time she tried this, it did not go well. And I'm not going to let you die either. You can't face Narose alone. And, as I've been saying for so long, you deserve a normal life. Well, here's the thing. I made a promise with Taku. Looking up to the overcast clouds, Rimi gave a fleeting smile. I promised I would protect him. So I gotta go. Bishi! Rimi. Walking past the boy in the wheelchair, Rimi proceeded down the stairs. And the boy, deciding not to follow her, or rather being unable to, sank deeply into his wheelchair and laid out a great sigh. You're planning to sacrifice yourself, Rimi. I mean, sacrifice herself is something she did to save Nanami, but how's destroying Noah gonna go? Well, we're here. This is the doorway in, I remember that. Noah 2, the bringer of calamity, or perhaps the creator of a utopia for humanity. No, it's a bug in the MMO. Whichever it was, it meant nothing to Remy. Whichever it was something Remy had to destroy. Noah 2's location was already a known fact to her, a mutual recognition, silently yet tactfully planted into the people's consciousness. Despite it being right in front of Shibuya Station, despite the building having been demolished years ago, it was there, with none suspecting a thing. No one even tried to go inside. Remy opened the door toward the former planetarium, where no signs of human presence could be found, and stepped inside. And that is the expected CG. Remy's eyes went wide at the sight she saw before her. There stood a device that was beyond enormous. Yeah, that's Noah 2 in the background. I just realized that now. Enshrined in the center of the dome-shaped room, it could be described only as a monster. An ominous sound rang faintly through the spacious room. It was a low-pitched noise akin to the deep growl of a beast, a sound that signified the device's operation. Noah 2. Also Nana. Nishiju Nanami was being held captive right next to the device. Her uniform was torn and a bandage soaked with blood was wrapped around her right wrist. Her head hung toward the floor and she looked terribly, terribly pale. Faced with such a pitiable sight, Remy was at a loss for words. Crucified in Jesus of Nazareth's likeness. No, what held her now could not be called a cross. It was something far different, for it took the shape of pure, unadulterated malice. Why does your D-sword look like that? The entirety of this world's evil, the entirety of this world's disorder, the entirety of this world's immorality. It would be no exaggeration to refer to it as a symbol sculpted to those very attributes. Keeping her guard up, Remy swiftly checked her surroundings. There was no one else there besides Nanami. She found no traces of the man who had prompted the development of Noah 2, the man who had performed ruthless, torturous experiments on her, Narose Genichi. Although surprised by that fact, Remy prioritized Nanami's rescue and ran toward the tableau crucifying her. Nana-chan, hang on! Lowering Nanami from the tableau, Remy sighed in relief after confirming she was still breathing. First and foremost, she had to get Nanami somewhere safe. To achieve this end, Remy went to pick her up. However... Oh dear. Well, someone just got cut. An intense pain surged in her back, as if something was gouging out her very flesh. Well, isn't this karma? Remy vomited blood that stained Nanami's uniform. My, it's our first time seeing each other again after so unbearably long, yet not even a greeting? Enduring the pain, Remy turned her head. Narose Genichi was standing right behind her, and in his hand was the tableau that had been clasping Nanami only a moment ago. However, it was not a tableau, but a sword, Narose Genichi's D-sword. So how did you get that? Exactly, because it still looks like some weird amalgamation of everybody else's sword. I see stylings of Kazue's sword, I see stylings of Remy's sword, and that's just in this weird angle here. That could be Ayase's over there. I need some background on you. That very blade was now piercing through her body. Narose slowly drew his hand back. The sharp blade of his D-sword bored into her body, sliding through her flesh, and scraped against the surface of her bones. Well, this went about as well as last time. Her body arced in involuntary spasms, spurred on by the sharp, agonizing pain, as her body was slowly being sliced apart. Yep, good job. That's the Remy ending. Well done. Shouldn't you be more than accustomed to pain? At last, Narose's sword released her. A torrent of blood came gushing free. Every nerve in her body was screaming out in agony. Even now, she felt as if she was about to pass out from the sheer pain. That girl is a precious decoy required to lure out Nishiju Takumi. Having her taken away on a whim would present quite the trouble. Remy was well aware of the magnitude of Norose's powers as a gigalomaniac. She had been imprisoned by the man for over 3 years, after all. In a fair fight, she would not stand a chance, and in this situation, he would never let her go. The mere idea of doing so would have been unfathomable to him. At the very least, I have to make sure Nana-chan escapes. The taste of blood spread through her mouth. She was continually assaulted by the fierce urge to vomit. The open wound on her back was hot, as if seared by flame. The sheer pain coursing through her left her unable to move. Blood was still rushing out without pause. It felt as if her consciousness was about to be severed. It was so terribly cold. Her eyes grew hazy, and amid her fading vision, she saw what resembled a scornful smile forming on Norose's face. This might be it for me. Remy couldn't envision a delusion in which she managed to escape from this man's clutches. Only despair governed her heart. I'll grant you my power. Shogun is going to grant us his power. We're going to ascend as a Super Saiyan. The equivalent of a cheat code, but better because the cheat code we got sucked. It was a voice Remy knew very well. Nishiju Takumi, or the boy presenting himself as Shogun. The voice came from a distant place. If defined, it was in a manner akin to thought transference, in other words, telepathy, a feat made only possible by gigalomania. I grant my final delusion. To you. Well, she's not going to like that, because it means you're going to die. Takumi? I'm sorry for leaving you with such a difficult duty. Well, you were leaving Takumi with the difficult duty before, so you might as well just let Remy do it now. I've come to understand that it's impossible to go against your will, so I won't try to do so anymore. You plan to die, don't you? If there was a way to fix things without dying, I would have done it. Given that he is not awakened, there isn't much I can do. So at least let me do this. Let me grant my final delusion to you. What are you saying? There's no reason for you to... Even though he had no presence in this place, Remy shouted at the person she was speaking to. You are the one person I absolutely cannot let die. I was the source behind all of this, so I can't let you suffer for it. But... That's enough. Remy, I need you to kill Norose. And then, I need you to destroy Noah 2. I will provide backup. Remy's teeth sank into her lip and she wiped away her tears. Despite it growing more and more distant with every passing second, she did everything in her power to hold on to her consciousness. Well, time to mess you up. She reel-booted her D-sword. Countless fluttering feathers came falling down. Cradling Nanami with one hand, she held her sword in the other. The dripping sound landing at her feet conveyed the terrible amount of blood she had lost. The bleeding had yet to stop, for her wound was one that would never allow it to. Huh? What's this? Cut him up. A single slash of Norose's D-sword, one capable of bringing down all that stood against it. Remy took the blow with her sword as she covered for Nanami, but their difference in weight proved fatal. Remy could not take one of Norose's blows head-on with her small build. She was blown backwards and she slammed into the wall behind her. A crack tore through the wall of the planetarium's dome. Damn, you hit it hard. I even went to the great trouble of letting you live. And this is how you repay me? Do you still desire more torment? Narose slowly walked toward Remy. His face was one of pure, unending confidence. Every facet of his being stood high above, looking down on her with great derision. Ever the sadist, aren't you? Remy grinned, but her smile was a strained one. And then, for some reason only she could have known, she swung her sword toward the cracked wall behind her. Why that? The wall collapsed, exposing the scenery of the outside world. It was raining. Dense rain clouds coated the sky. Do you mean to run? I won't run away. But... Remy sat Nanami down on the ground, releasing her from her hold. Still holding her sword tight, she wrapped her arms around Nanami from behind. Nana-chan has nothing to do with this. Remy crafted a delusion, a single dazzling ray of light. Are those wings going to be used as literal wings? By the time the light had subsided, the wing-shaped D-sword Remy held was no longer there. In their place, snow-white feathers had grown from Nanami's back. Well, that's kind of cool. Pure, untainted wings enveloped the blood-stained girl. It was a gruesome yet unendingly beautiful sight. Her form was like that of an angel. Nanami was unconscious, yet as if they had a will of their own, the wings that adorned her began to flap. Remy parted from Nanami. Deeply bemused, Narose watched as Nanami flew up through the giant hole that had been opened in the planetarium. Slowly and steadily, she glided through Shibuya as the rain incessantly poured. Now unarmed, Remy watched as she flew. Hopefully you no longer need a weapon. If you've got Shogun powers. Nana-chan, be safe. I see. Using your delusions, you turned your D-sword into a pair of wings. Do you no longer plan to run? Narose already had Remy within range of his own D-sword. He could send her head flying with a simple swing. Nevertheless, Remy stared right back at him, bereft of all fear. I can't run just yet. Because I have to kill you first. From her pocket, Remy retrieved a cross with a dark sheen. Oh! You took Nanami's sword? To be precise, however... Oh, no, it's that. To be precise, however, it was not a cross, but rather a stake. The same as those that had been used in the crucifixion case. In that very moment, Remy had just real-booted one. Upon witnessing this display, Narose could not help but raise a scornful laugh. Kill me? With that toy? That plaything? You greatly underestimate me. Block it? The blow was far too fast. Never mind. Narose's D-sword, far longer than he was tall, and at a speed thought unthinkable within mortal constraints, tore through Remy's flank. Only when her body had already begun to stagger from the slash did she realize she had been cut. Remy collapsed, screaming at the top of her lungs from the sheer pain. We can use that power-up now, Shogun. Narose's attack was not one meant to kill. He could have killed her whenever he wished at this point, but he intentionally refrained from doing so. Approaching the writhing girl, he trampled down on her arm. Repeatedly alternating between painful breaths and gritting her teeth, Remy eventually stopped moving, for she had no other choice. The tip of Narose's enormous sword was right up against her blood-drenched back, but he had yet to pierce her with it. Would you be so kind as to say that one more time? Stop! I will not stop! In light of her request, Narose pushed his sword forward with great strength. The tip of his sword further gouged the flesh of her blood-stained body, clawing even deeper into her. It was as if he was pinning an insect for him to display. So, I believe you said you would kill me. Or did I simply mishear you? And yet, Remy, still lying prone on the ground, reached for Narose's leg with one hand and grabbed onto it. She clung to him as tightly as she could. The depths of her teary eyes harbored resolute flames of determination. They glared at the scornful man from below. I will. I'll kill you. I'll put you to rest forever. Pulling his sword out from her, Narose kicked Remy in the jaw with all of his strength. Her body tumbled across the floor like a rag doll. It seems that in the time we've spent apart, you've grown to be a rather displeasing human being. You've served your purpose. I let you live believing you were worth using later on, but I find myself no longer in need of you. Remy was on the verge of death. She tried pushing her body up from the floor and crawling toward Narose, but without her D-sword and being unable to walk, she might as well have been already dead. Until the very moment your life slips away, I ask that you never let those impertinent remarks leave your mind. But before you reach that end, I propose... how about I torture you every day for, let's say, 30 years? Inside a delusion, of course. Oh, well... Our boy Takumi got off lucky with 3 days. 3 days. 30 years? Dang. Is that how the rest of this, never mind? That's not how the rest of this, ending is gonna go. Narose's lips twisted. Keeping the collapsed girl surrounded by fluttering feathers within his sight, he formed a delusion. He strengthened his grasp on his D-sword. Well, if he gets away with this, we're in for a lot of, I hope they clip that down a bit. 30 years is a bit long. And opened his channel into the Dirac Sea. The particles and antiparticles needed to materialize his delusion had now been created. And from those two collections, only the particles, through the signals of light that were established as sight, were sent into Sakihara Rimi's dead spots. That's exactly what I've been waiting for. Well, good. Nani? In a single instant, the fluttering feathers transformed into eyes. Until this very moment, the only eyes watching him had been Rimi's. But now he was surrounded by an innumerable number of floating eyes. Is this how we're going to establish mutual recognition? Whose eyes are those eyes? It was the last illusion Takumi had bestowed upon her. Oh! So what has Shogun got in store? There go the dead spots. The particles Narose had sent were impeded by the countless eyes, rendering them unable to reach Rimi's dead spots. Ah, Rimi has no dead spots because eyes are everywhere. And those eyes connected to the Dirac Sea discharged many antiparticles. An indomitable defense which cancelled out the powers of a gigalomaniac. Okay, interesting. Only because he was Nishiji Takumi. Only because he was a gigalomaniac powerful enough to create a human. Only because he had exhausted the final embers of his own life could such a monstrous delusion have been rebooted. Astonished by the eyes surrounding him, Narose gulped. No matter where he looked, there were only eyes watching him. Not only did their numbers refuse to dwindle, but they grew with no end. They buried Narose's entire field of vision, and then they moved in toward him. Narose was instinctively overwhelmed by an intense fear. Gritting his teeth, he swung his D-sword. The cut eyes gushed blood, closed their eyelids, and vanished. But right behind every eye there was another. No matter how many he cut down, their numbers remained the same. Now it's your turn. Don't look at me! If that's what you want, then don't open your eyes ever again. Narose suddenly felt a great pressure on his chest, And the very next moment, signals of pain sounded in his brain. As if they were a cloud of mist clearing away, the eyes that surrounded him all vanished without a trace. Before Norose's eyes stood Rimi, and in her hand was the cross-shaped stake, lodged deep in Norose's chest. And thus, that was his end. Okay, what about the Noah 2? After confirming Norose's death, Rimi fell to her knees, debilitated. She was bleeding terribly, her face pale as porcelain. She was barely even conscious now. Pained, irregular breaths seeped from her mouth. Her eyes no longer saw anything. She could still faintly hear the ominous sounds of Noah 2, designating its status as fully operational. I guess I've got no choice but to entrust someone else with destroying it. I'm sorry, Taku. In a faint, almost inaudible voice, Rimi whispered into the air. I don't think I'll be able to keep my promise. I mean, with no one actually using it, how deadly is it? I saved Nana-chan. I know that's not enough to pay for my sins, but still, I saved her. Rimi sluggishly raised her face. There should have been a section of the planetarium's wall that had collapsed, a section through which the sky should have been peeking, but a few moments ago, it had been veiled completely by a collection of rain clouds. And because of that, she could only wonder. Her eyes no longer allowed her to confirm its color, but Sakihara Rimi showed a faint smile as she looked up to the sky. I still wish I could have seen that sky with you. Just one more time. Taku, thank you. Is that going to be it? Something's got to deal with Noah here. Is Mimose going to come in and do it? Taku finally left his crate. When I opened the door to my base and stepped out, a clear blue sky jumped into view. I had the feeling it had been raining, but it must have cleared up pretty fast. I hadn't been able to find Rimi anywhere. She had vanished without a single word to me. Once again, she had disappeared on me. I've been waiting for hours on end, but she never came back. Instead, waiting outside my base was Nanami. Oh, Shogun.
Shogun.
Yeah, Shogun has to talk with you. Moving very slowly, the wrinkly boy in the wheelchair looked directly at me. Terrified, my legs gave out on me and I fell to the ground. You're free now. Huh? In less than an hour, my time will come. The entity posing a threat to you was killed by Rimi. Hearing her name sent a wave of relief through me. Rimi had tried her hardest to protect me? I was the one who hid Aoi Sena and Orihara Kazue's corpses. Okay, as we suspected might have been a possibility. Nanami was safely admitted to the hospital. Therefore, you're free now. I didn't understand. Wasn't he my enemy? What? What about Rimi? Where did she go? Rimi won't be coming back. What? Adieu. Shogun, skillfully maneuvering his wheelchair, turned his back to me. How are you getting down from here? Oh, and then he just vanished. And within that time frame, one that hadn't even spanned a single second, Shogun had vanished without a trace. What the hell? What had just happened? Only a couple moments after that, I heard a low-pitched quaking noise in the distance. Looking over toward the center of Shibuya, I saw something. As if there had been a giant explosion, a single cloud of dense black smoke was making its way up into the sky. Okay, well, there goes Noah. That could still be Momose. She could still be doing the debugging. Something had happened. No, something was happening. An uprising? Something paranormal? Or maybe even a battle between Gigalomaniacs? Whatever it was, it scared the hell out of me. That mysterious appearance from Shogun had also scared the hell out of me. I didn't want to go anywhere near what was happening right now. Remy won't be coming back. But Remy could have been over there. She had disappeared once again, and yet I was surprisingly calm. It was strange. For some reason, I didn't feel like I'd been betrayed this time. This time, I had the strong belief that Remy was somewhere out there, struggling all alone, trying her absolute hardest for my sake. But Remy, haven't you done enough? Haven't you faced enough hardships as it is? You shouldn't have to suffer any longer. There's no reason to. It's not right. I remembered the soft sensation of her lips. I was going to look for her. I'd have enough of not doing anything. Whoops, I skipped that. I'd had enough of not doing anything, of staying in my room all day like a coward. Our future, for both Remy and I, in the lives that we shared, there were so many incredible, amazing things waiting for us in the future. I chose to believe that, and I knew in my heart that it was right to do so. Probably in the true ending. Aw, this is when she promised to stay with us. We'll go to school in the morning, talk about whatever comes to mind in between classes. Eat together at lunchtime. Then at the end of the day, we'll head back home. Sometimes stopping by a shop or two on the way back. Then when we do get back, we'll chat for a bit in your room. And then when we're all tuckered out, we'll say goodbye with a nice wave and a see you tomorrow. If you're fine with that, I can definitely go the distance. Hey, she's floating there too. I've always wanted to be that person for someone. Now I understood. I understood what she had meant by those words. How much she wished for such a simple life. When I thought back on everything, I realized that the time I'd spent with her had only been a few hours in total. Exactly. Really, not that long at all, but I had loved every last second of it. I was always happy when I was with her. To me, who had gone through every day all alone as a shut-in, living as though I was dead, Remy's smile had been my sole source of hope. It told me that a bright future existed ahead of me. Remy had smiled for my sake. So now, she should smile for her own sake. I believed she would come back. But this wasn't my usual escapism, hoping to avoid reality. No, this was my resolve. I would believe only in her, for she had promised me she would be with me forever. So get moving. Move your ass, Nishiju Takumi. Credits. Credits. And so in order to see her again, we had to restart the game. I headed toward the destroyed Shibuya. Wait for me, Remy. We'll start the new ending next time. I'll find you. I know I will. And this time, I'll stay by your side. Is that it? No more wordy words? There we go. It occurred to me that the true ending of this game, either the chapter or the achievement, I forget what, is called Blue Sky. So, that's, we know what that means. But yeah, let's let these credits rock, and then I'm curious what our title screen looks like, because my understanding is we unlock a new title screen option to get our true ending. So that'll be curious. It looks like this will be a 3-parter. It is the longest one, at least until I start cutting out the areas that I fast-forwarded through. But this was at least as long as the Senna and the Causeway endings. Debugging. I see that debugging. Why isn't Momose in there? Nintendo Switch version, blah, blah, blah. And that is our second last ending and our final character ending. So I'm excited. I'm not allowed, as far as I understand. Again, let's see what the title screen looks like. But as far as I know, you can't pick the route to the true ending until you've done all the side stuff. Which tells me that the stuff we learn in the side stories is going to be relevant. So all the things that we've learned, everything we've experienced, all the revelations, all the background info, what's it all going to lead to? Where is our happy ending? How do we get to survive, supposedly with Remy, and have our normal life? Reached Remy's ending. The Anima image ending. Saving system data. Oh, looky. I wondered if it was going to be up there because there's always been this little wire connecting, going up to an option above start that was not visible. But hey, what did I say? Blue sky. Who's up for some blue sky? You want to see some blue sky? We're going to get to some blue sky next time. It's all been leading up to this. If you've been watching the Let's Play for this long, I thank you. I appreciate you. It is actually quite a bit of work to not just play the game and narrate and try to say things that I think are interesting, but later on I edit out because they're boring and stupid and dumb. But just all the uploading and everything and all the stuff I have to do to get this going. So if you've been sticking with this series for as long as you have, I appreciate that. I genuinely do. I am doing this for you, not for me. So if you've been sticking with it for this long, I hope you enjoy what is coming up, and I hope you look forward to it because I sure as hell am. Starting with the next episode, True Ending. What even happens? Do we start the game at the beginning and get our interludes again? Is it just completely, entirely new content? I have no idea. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. I will see you next time. Have a great week, and take care.